Dr. Doran, what what is your interpretation of the situation? How do you see it also from the point of view of the United States?
First of all, can you hear me? Because
Yes.
I'm. Oh, good. Okay, because I'm working through my phone and the computer at the same time.
We hear you. We hear you well.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I think it's important to understand Trump's position in the elections. I think understanding how he defines his options, in trying to understand how he defines his options, the election is crucial. He's looking at his base, and his base is divided between two groups with respect to foreign policy. One group is more sort of traditional Republican, and believes in a strong America abroad, believes in countering America's enemies, supporting its allies, and so forth. These are sort of traditional, what we used to call paleo cons. You might add to that the word Jacksonian, if that means anything to anyone. This is not neoconservative. There's no appetite in Trump's base at all for going out and remaking the world, democratizing the Middle East, anything that smacks of a George W. Bush style invasion of Iraq, or anything that could lead to that. Trump has made it very clear that he thinks all of that was a big boondoggle, a big mistake. What the hell are we doing over there? So his instincts, as you see in Afghanistan, he's got a strong instinct to sort of just get the hell out of the Middle East. And that leads to the second group, which I'd call sort of the, for lack of a better word, the Tucker Carlson wing of the Trump base. Tucker Carlson, Rand Paul, the libertarian wing, they basically don't understand what the United States is doing in the Middle East at all, and they're opposed to any military activity in the region. Trump, therefore, doesn't want to take any step that can be painted by his opponents during the election season, especially, as a step that's going to lead to war. And I think the Iranians very cleverly understood this, and they developed a strategy after last April, after the U.S. started tightening the sanctions and started going after the nuclear waivers, the civil nuclear waivers that allowed third parties to cooperate with the Iranians. Khamenei came up with what was really a pretty clever strategy, where he escalated through proxies on the military front, while aggressively working with the Europeans and the Democrats over here to present Trump's policy as a march to war. And I think that scared Trump a little bit. I think they sensed the fear, and they were working well in that direction. But at a certain point, Trump realized, just as our previous speaker said, that if they were to give in to the Iranians on these maximum pressure issues, it would be a defeat. And so as the Iranians escalated, the United States found ways to respond, which led to the killing of Qasem Soleimani. But Trump wants to avoid those steps as much as possible. So you see, there's a little bit of if you're looking at it from an Israeli point of view, there's a little bit of a contradiction in the American policy with regard to the question of deterrence. I think the administration kind of hoped that we could do a Zbang Gamarnu with Soleimani, and the Iranians would be deterred, and then you don't have to engage in the kind of day-to-day deterrence that the Israelis engage with, say, Hamas and in Gaza. And so that's still kind of working itself out. You saw just recently the Iranian proxies killed an American, or killed 2 Americans and killed a Brit, and there was not really an adequate response to that, according to Donald Trump's own red lines. So I think the Iranians are reading that, but they themselves, I think they got the fear of God in them with the killing of Qasem Soleimani. I mean, it showed that the U.S. is capable of escalating, and the United States can inflict a very big price on them with a single drone or 2 drones from Qatar. It wasn't even launched from inside Iraq. So that's kind of the political context in which all of this is happening. The Iranians are launching now another campaign. They're using the Corona crisis to launch a new information campaign against the administration's policy. I don't know if you saw last night, it's out this morning in the New York Times, Rob Malley has an op-ed saying, compassion requires us to relieve the sanctions against Iran. There's a full-blown campaign going on. By the way, for those of you who are, in my opinion, Rob Malley is, if you want to follow the American debate and you want to understand what's happening on the left and sort of the pro-JCPOA left, Rob Malley is the single most important person to watch. I regard him as the smartest person on the other side, and the guy who has the kind of 360-degree field of vision. He's following through. He runs the International Crisis Group, so he's getting information from the Middle East about what's going on the ground in the Middle East. He understands the strategic questions from his time in the White House. And he also understands, importantly, the domestic political context. The thing about Trump's base is that the kind of Rand Paul, Tucker Carlson wing, their views on Iran are pretty much identical to Rob Malley's views. There's a point at which the left and right it bends, and one part of the right wing spectrum and part of the left wing spectrum come together. And they both depict Iran as a benign actor whose hostile actions are responses to American aggression. And the answer is from the United States to distance itself from Saudi Arabia and Israel and reach out to Iran. So if you want to just very quickly understand how this is being expressed in a day-to-day fashion by that side, I think Rob Malley is the single best person to turn to. He's also in direct contact with Zarif, if not direct contact, in indirect contact, and they're coordinating. There's no doubt about this. Kerry, Zarif, the Europeans, and International Crisis Group and others, they're all coordinating their message. What's the goal right now? The goal of the Iranians right now is to use the coronavirus crisis to get the IMF to give them a major loan. I don't know that they can succeed at that. I personally don't understand the internal processes at the IMF well enough to know. I would think that the United States, as the single largest shareholder, will be able to block that. But you never know. They're pushing that. They're also pushing to have some of the money that's held in the escrow accounts as a result of American sanctions to be freed up, again, for compassion. Clearly, you've all seen Pompeo's statements in the last few days. The administration has no inclination to relieve that, but that's the goal. This takes us back, I think, to the kind of situation we were in against Saddam Hussein in the late 1990s, early 2000, before 9/11. The U.S. then had a complete embargo on siege, basically on the Iraqi economy. After the answer to that was that America is killing babies, that it's and for compassionate reasons we need to release that. We need to release that funding, and it depicted we need to release the siege. And that campaign depicted everything bad that happened in the Middle East, including Al Qaeda's activities, as a response to the inhuman policy that the United States was carrying out against Iraqi. The United States was killing Iraqi babies, and therefore Al Qaeda was hostile to us. The Iranians are moving in whether they're actually looking back at that campaign or not. This is what they've come to, and the coronavirus offers them a real opportunity. The administration doesn't have a very good information platform from which to push its point of view. I am completely sympathetic to his point of view. I do wish, just as our previous speaker said, the United States could be a little bit more flexible politically in terms of creating, playing on tensions that exist inside Iranian society. But I think we just have to understand that in the Trump administration, actions like that we're not going to see that, because Trump doesn't believe, the top leadership doesn't really believe in engaging in the Middle East on that level. It smacks too much of the old George W. Bush style of doing things. The tool that they have landed on, that they see as most successful, is this maximum pressure economic tool, combined with a certain amount of deterrence. And the Iranians see that they've got a little thing. They've been given some areas to play in. The humanitarian question allows them some room to maneuver, and continued use of their proxies on the ground gives them some room to maneuver. I don't see any of this changing until after the U.S. election. If those same dynamics, if Trump is reelected, they will continue afterward. There'll be more opportunity for the U.S. to tweak its policy and change certain aspects. It'll be able to respond militarily a little bit more aggressively if it is so inclined after the election. And there'll be some room for some political initiatives as well. But until then, I think we're just kind of frozen in place. And I'll stop there.
Thank you very much.